Hi everyone, welcome to Tuesday's tutorials. Today we've got Alan Nixon who's going to be doing a Seascape edit for us. Take us through taking the pictures, right through the processing to the end product. Thanks very much, Alan, for doing this for us. I think it's quite interesting to see how we go from start to finish. So let me play that video for you.
Right. Good morning, everybody. It's Alan Nixon here again. Last week I was chatting about my seascape photography. Gave you a couple of tips on how to get out there and get your feet wet. Quentin just asked me to do a quick little sort of 10-minute little guide on editing. I must emphasize that this is just how I actually edit. A lot of people might use different methods, but this is how I prefer to do things. I think this is quite a nice, uncomplicated way just to get you started, and you can maybe take it from there and expand your editing techniques. I have found that my editing has changed over the years. So tip is I always keep all my raw files, which is a bit of a hoarder, and I've got quite a few hard drives with all my raw stuff on. But what I have found is I go back to stuff that I've done sort of 2-3 years ago, even longer, and pull raw images back out, and I see how I've edited them initially, and you'll see there's a difference as your techniques become more refined. So anyway, onto the editing. I've actually in my original presentation, I chatted to you about Lightroom and Photoshop are my main go-to pieces of software, as well as On1 and Aurora. But let's just stick with Lightroom and Photoshop and how you can go from one to the other and basically get a picture up and running. So the idea is this is what the raw picture will look like. It comes out pretty flat, as you know. Basically the raw just compresses all your white balances, allowing you to push and pull them in your editing process. So obviously raw is recommended. You can see my little horizon is a little bit skewed, but we can get that sorted. And yeah, hopefully when we're finished, the picture will look like that. So yeah, you can see there's quite a big difference between the raw and the edited picture. So if you are in landscape photography, work on your editing techniques, really put some time into it, because that's when your landscapes really come to life. All right, so that's what we're trying to achieve, but we'll come back to Photoshop just now. Let's just start off with Lightroom. So obviously the important thing is we go and import our file. So I've already chosen where my pictures are, and basically you just want to review all those pictures to start with. I also in my presentation mentioned that you should always look around. So once I've done a seascape, this was what was behind me, and you can see the hotel and the Pearls, quite amazing buildings. But anyway, we'll get into that later. So, all right, so we've got all our pictures up and running. You can see there's quite a lot you can choose from, but this just goes back to part of my photography tips on seascapes, is that you have to shoot on continuous shutter mode. And basically that enables you to go through a whole sequence of a wave, and when you get to editing, you can actually choose which moments of that wave coming in that you actually want to use, because it's going to be quite difficult just to shoot one-off shots, because you might miss it, you might get it, might be the perfect wave, and then it's really not there. So and you would have missed it. So if you just have a quick look here, really starting sort of from the right here, you can see that's the start of the wave over there, and you can just see it coming in and breaking slowly over those rocks, all the way until it pushes right up if you just follow the cursor. And then the important part as well is to capture that the back pull of the tide, because that gives you really nice streaky lines. So what I'm going to do, and then it actually creates a second build-up of a wave. So I'm just going to highlight these just so we've got something to play with and to show you. So basically I'm going to take those, I think it looks about sort of 16 is 15 photos. There we go. I've selected them. And they're busy importing the top left-hand corner. Whichever software you've got, whether it's Lightroom, and it doesn't matter which year of Lightroom you're working, it's all the same. It just operates in different with a different interface. So basically, all right, those are the 15 I've imported. So let's just start at the first break of the wave there. So let's go down to the bottom. You can see we click to a single image, the big image. And yeah, so obviously this is the beginning of the wave, so I don't really want that. I want something a bit further down. And yeah, we're starting to get it now. A really nice feel. There's nice milkiness. Also, you can see the exposure. It's a little bit high on the exposure, but that's done for a purpose, just so that we can still maintain the shadows and some sort of detail there. As long as there's information in the sky and you don't blow the sky, that's the important part, because I'll show you just now that you can actually take that and pull it right down back to a decent exposure. But importantly, you've got these shadows here. If you do it the other way around and get the sky perfectly exposed, these shadows are going to be far too dark on the rocks, and when you start pulling those shadows up, you're going to create a lot of noise, and obviously that's ideally not what we want. So just going through each, you see, I think that's almost the picture that we showed you earlier. Just what's really nice is a lot of movement over the rocks, movement around in the front here, almost creating like a pincer. But I think, as I originally said, there's such beautiful detail here on the sand. So the contrast of that really crisp sand with the soft wave, but still moving fast, so it creates the power, is really quite a nice combination between the two. You can see just with the 16mm lens wide open on 16mm, you can see how we get a little bit of bending at the top right, but we can actually sort that out as well. So you've got to look at the whole picture and tweak everything basically to get it sorted. So we'll just go through the rest and just see and just show you. So obviously this is the full wave breaking, and we're starting to get really nice motion now, but here the rocks are getting a little bit hidden by that wave. So what we're looking for is that texture in the foreground, as I said in my tutorial, and that's taking a little bit of that texture away. So yeah, basically we get onto these ones. So I think, yeah, let's just go back to the original. Let's just choose that one, and basically, yeah, let's start editing. So importantly, what I do first, I go down to optics, which is basically removing any chromatic aberration. There's those little green edges and red edges, and then basically I just correct the lens as well. In this lens, you can actually determine, in this section, you can actually dial in your lens and it will correct it according to the lens that you're using. It also gives you more options to defringe a little bit more. If it's still not enough, if you're still getting a little bit of green edges, if we're going closer, we can have a look here that there's no edges. If you do get chromatic aberration, you'll find it on these edges here. You can see there's a slight little bit of green there and reds coming in, quite a lot there. So as soon as we click that, you can see they disappear and give you a nice crisp clean edge to all your basic edges really. So if we zoom back out on that, so that's important. Just get rid of that first. I don't do any cropping. I work on my tones first, because you might want to blend another picture with a different sea or a different sky. And if it's from the same camera position, you can easily blend those. If you start cropping one picture and then try and drop in a sky from another picture, but it's already been cropped, it's going to be very difficult to marry those two, and you'll just end up with a little bit of a nightmare trying to marry those two or blend them together. So don't crop until you've finished editing, and then crop your picture. Okay, here's a tip. So as I said, the exposure is a little bit bright, so you can see by exposing the sky correctly, as I spoke earlier, how this gets dark. So we've got enough in the sky. So that's just a check to see. Just drop the exposure to see you've got enough in the sky to play with. that it hasn't been blown out. And really, so part of Lightroom is you've got these presets at the bottom here. This is just a whole lot of stuff. You can buy them, you can download free ones. It's really just a quick way to, at one click, get a look and feel. You might not want to do anything with that look and feel, but what it does do, it just gives you a start in the right direction. So you can go through as many presets that you want, and you can see it just giving you completely different feels. If we look at the sort of warm sun, which is where we kind of go, that's not a bad start to where I want to go. So I might use that preset just to kick off my editing. So from here, all it's doing is it's actually giving you a head start on your sliders. So it's pushing you in the right direction that you want to go. So that's how I use the presets, because each landscape is so difficult. So you can create a permanent preset for different types of seascape, but you'll find you'll just have to create new ones and new ones and new ones because every scene will be different. But it gives you a right place to start. So importantly, what happens when you do use a preset, it takes away anything you have done before. So we'll go back to our optics and just get rid of that chromatic aberration, and our lens corrections are back in place. So suddenly we're in a nicer, warmer area and getting closer to where we want to be. Now, basically, when you start using these radial gradients and linear gradients, you're just taking specific areas and playing with them without affecting the rest of the picture. So what I do is I just want to have a look at those clouds, so I'll just use that linear gradient to do that. I don't want those clouds too dark, but I actually just want a little bit more detail in there. So blacks are important, then just to crush your blacks a bit. Shadows, you can drop the shadows a bit, but it's quite soft. So highlights, we can maybe drop our highlights a little bit just to take off where the sun's getting quite hot at the top there. Clarity is always good for clouds. It gives them a little bit of definition, if you can see the difference there. So dehaze, obviously that just freshens it up a bit, especially down at the coast. You get quite a lot of haze in the morning, so it's actually, dehaze is actually what it does. It just cleans up the sky and basically takes away that humidity that gets that you get down at the coast. So it can sort of drag it up and down just so that there's a nice graduation between the sky and the sea. So it's not a hard sky and a different sea. There has to be a blend between the two. It's still quite hot up in this little area over there. That's just because I've been pushing the blacks and the contrast a bit. So we don't want to lose too much to it. This is where these radial blurs can work so nicely. You can just take a certain area of that picture that you want to actually fix, open it up to whatever size you need, and then I'll just drop the highlights right down. And then suddenly it just takes that edge off, I can actually drop the exposure a little bit in that corner there, and then I might just lift the shadows a bit just to get rid of that that dark cloud. So I don't know if we're still recording. All right, so okay, that's just a basic start, and you can see you're already in the right direction. Now basically with these radial blurs, it actually gives you all the different sliders to tackle your blacks, your texture, your clarity, your whites, shadows, highlights. Gives you the whole range. You can do sharpness, noise. So they're actually quite nice to work in, and they're kind of like a luminance mask in some respects, in that it actually gives you a place to gives you really areas you can target only in the whole picture without affecting the rest of the picture, and that's what you're looking for, because your exposures are going to change quite drastically. If you look at the sort of middle section here, it gets quite dark and it's quite light in the front, so we might want to just lift those areas a little bit. So we can either do it through the exposure and just oops, a bit too much, but we can just lift them a little just so that they come up a bit. Even then you can lift the shadows as well just to lighten it. What I also do tend to do is to put a bit of clarity on there, which then just gives a little bit more harder edges, a bit more definition, and that just gives you the texture of the sea. It creates quite a nice contrast against the soft foaminess in the front as well. So now you can see that's balanced out nicely. That color of the sea, this is important, is starting to reflect the color in the sky. Yeah, so I can sit here for another sort of 3 hours and play around with all these basic little things. But yeah, in 10 minutes, you can see already from where we started, if you look at the one next to it, from there to there, what I've just done literally in 5 or 10 minutes. And let's just click back there so we can get back where we were. All right, so that's where we were. And just to go back to where we were on Photoshop, you see we're actually quite close now to where we want to be. So it's a little bit more work to do. You can see a little bit, got to crush just a little bit of those blacks and those shadows. But yeah, really that's a quick little editing lesson. What we can do at the bottom, just if you want to, is go to distortion for your verticals. So now we can try and play with that as much as we want. It's going to affect the aspect sort of the picture, but by playing on the vertical plane, it starts straightening up those that lighthouse a little bit. If we try and get them completely straight, then we're sort of looking at that angle, and then what it does do is it does affect your ultimately the framing of the picture to be able to create that straightness. So you will lose a bit of edge on your picture, but maybe it's worth it to get it straight. So yeah, that's really where we want to be in terms of getting. If you're going to have verticals and parallels in your landscapes or seascape, they've got to be straight and they can't be bending. It looks very odd if it's not. And then obviously the last thing, most important thing, get the horizon straight at the end. So we can see it's almost there. I think that's about it. What you will find as well is that you might have an optical illusion. So you could actually bring a measuring tool down and see exactly that it's level in terms of the geometry. But when you look at the picture, it's still skewed. So the idea is to balance it to what it looks like. And you might have to adjust that level off center a little bit, but optically when you look at it, it will be straight. So that's just part of our human eye and how objects balance each other out in the space available. Yeah, so that's it. We've got a straight pier. We've got a little bit of sunrise coming out. There's some nice reflection on the rocks here. As I said, we could work a little bit more. And what I would normally do is just work on this rock a bit. And maybe pull it down a bit. I'll just try and create a little bit of texture in there. So this is where clarity, dehazing a little bit. See, it starts pulling out the texture there, but it starts creating quite nice shiny highlights. Highlights we could push here maybe if you wanted, just to try and push those a little bit more, maybe up the whites, take the blacks down a little bit, just to give the contrast. So you can see the difference now between that rock and this rock over here. There's quite a big difference. If we go back to our original picture, our rock's starting to look a bit similar, and we can play with it a little bit more. All right, guys, that's it. Once you're happy with the pic, you just right-click and you go edit in Photoshop, and it does all its wonderful stuff. At the top there, you can see it says opening in Photoshop. So we'll just see if my computer's a bit tired or if it's okay. There we go. Starting to come on nicely, and bang, there it is. And as I said, we'll check that to where we were. Yeah, and we're pretty close. So that's just the basic start to editing. I hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll chat soon. Cheers, man.